Okay. We will call the public hearing on the budget to order. We will begin the hearing, as we do all of our events, by reading the mission statement of the Norfolk Public Schools, which is, the Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnership, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Can we begin with a roll call?
Jennifer Wynn,
Shannon Meneses, Lisa Sheldon,
Victoria Soldano,
Barry Nectel.
Ingrid Alardi.
And Medora Champagne. So how this public hearing will work is we will have a presentation of the proposed school budget for fiscal year 2024 that Dr. Alardi will run us through. Following that, we will have some time set aside for public comment to the extent that that is necessary. And then we will adjourn our hearing and commence the regularly scheduled school committee meeting. So Dr. Alardi, I think you're up.
All right, great. So we are pleased to be able to present to the committee and to the public the proposed fiscal 2024 budget for the Norfolk Public Schools. I think it's important, we always like to start by thanking the community. We are fortunate to be part of a town that has continually invested in education. We have many parents, many community members who volunteer their time, whether it's to support the library program or recess and lunch, and we benefit from all of that. So thank you to the public and to our parent volunteers, senior volunteers, and those who support the schools in many ways. I'd like to start by sharing with the public our vision and mission statement. You can see them on the screen, and Medora read them earlier today. But this is important because the vision and mission of the Norfolk Public Schools drive our budget process. When we are making budget decisions, we really try to keep in mind that our goal of providing a safe, joyful, and challenging learning experience that meets the needs of all of our learners. We make budget decisions with that in mind, and we always try to consider, when we have to make reductions, what's going to have the least impact on student learning and achievement, and how we can preserve the instructional core. The presentation tonight is going to be divided into 6 main parts. I'll start by reviewing the Norfolk budget history, as well as some of the unique challenges that we're facing this year as we are developing our budget proposal. We will look at per pupil spending comparisons between Norfolk and our comparison districts that are identified by the Department of Education. We'll consider the budget request and what some of the main drivers of the 2024 budget are. We'll talk about enrollment and class size projections, and then some of the cost savings efforts that the district has worked really hard to be able to put into place to try to help the town manage some of the growing costs. And then we'll end by talking about the return on investment. So, starting with the budget history. I think when you look at any budget, it's important to see it in the context of the long-term spending and history of the district. So when you look at the last probably 10 years of Norfolk Public Schools, you'll see that between the years of 2008 and 2013, the town of Norfolk, as well as most communities across the state, were in a phase of significant recession. In order for us to open our school doors the way we close in June, which means to carry forward all of the existing staff to absorb routine cost increases in supplies and expenses, it typically takes 3%. 3% allows us to have what we would call a level service budget. When you have less than that, you're looking at reductions to staffing, to programs, to resources. So between 2000 and what you see on the slide, 2010 and 2013, you can see there were years that the district absorbed a negative 3%, 1%, 0%, a 1.6%. All of those years had significant impacts on programming and staffing in the Norfolk Public Schools. Many positions were eliminated. The foreign language program was cut during that time. Many accounts were zeroed out, new curriculum adoption, technology. And since that time, beginning in 2014, the district was able to, and the town was able to support higher budget increases. Again, it takes 3% just to open the way we close. So when you see 4.7, 4.3, there's a little bit of additional revenue that we have been able to start to bring back some of those programs and recover from what happened during the recession. At the same time, I want to point out that over the last 5 years, we've also been seeing significant enrollment growth. We expect to open in September with 100 more students than we had 5 years ago. So some of the increased budget drivers during the last 5 years have been additions of staffing, classroom teaching positions that are really just offsetting enrollment growth, but not necessarily allowing us the opportunity to continue restoring and rebuilding. The average school budget increase of the last 15 years is 2.97%. So again, 3% to open the way you close, plus absorbing all of that enrollment growth. The cost of growing enrollment, we've been talking a lot to the public, probably for the last 5 years, about our significant space shortage in the Norfolk Public Schools. Back in 2017, we presented at town meeting a request for funding to do an exploratory study for school expansion. We're in the process of a feasibility study now, looking at a potential school expansion project at the Freeman Kennedy. But there are significant costs outside of space in order to program as your student body is growing. Again, we have a class size policy in Norfolk. When we have many more students enrolling, we have to add classroom positions in order to maintain class sizes within the approved school committee policy. Also, our special education population is growing proportional to the overall student enrollment, which means we need additional special education staff and related service providers, speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, to meet the needs of the students that we're serving. We've also had to increase special subject staff, so art, music, physical education, to provide services to new classrooms that have been added. In many cases, we have large grade levels, and we've had to split the grade level in order to serve lunch efficiently. And that adds to our food service costs. So there's a lot of different costs. Oh, I don't know what's happening, I apologize. Sorry about that. There's a lot of different costs that are associated with growing enrollment. Additionally, in preparing the budget for the last 2 years, Norfolk Public Schools have traditionally received federal entitlement grants through Title I and Title IIA. I've been here for 11 years. The district has always received funding from those two sources, and that preceded me. So for the last 20 years, that has been part of our operating budget. The way that Title I and Title II entitlement grants are calculated, it has in the past been based on the district's local data for free and reduced lunch. So it's looking at students who may be economically disadvantaged. And based on that data, the proportionate share or how much funding goes to each district is calculated. During COVID, as meals were free across the country and federal funding was allocated to that, the government shifted to using census data to determine eligibility for Title I and Title II. So while our local data shows that the number of students who qualify as economically disadvantaged have almost doubled since 2019, gone from 4.7 in 2019 to 7.2% in 22, the federal census data doesn't align with that. Again, federal census data requires people to complete the census and return the census, and it is underestimating economic need in Norfolk. But based on the federal census data, Norfolk's been determined to no longer qualify for Title I or Title IIA funding. Title I funding, we have received approximately $30,000 annually, and that has supported one of our math specialist positions at the H. Olive Day School. And Title IIA has primarily been a professional development grant and has offset the cost of some mandatory professional development or new curriculum training that we have provided to teachers. So those costs now need to be built into the operating budget in order to sustain those level of services that we provide. I'm going to turn it over to Vicki, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the increasing social emotional needs of our students.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. So my name is Victoria Saldana. I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment here for the Norfolk Public Schools. And as Dr. Lardy mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our budget priority areas and kind of just give you a little bit of a background why they are such large priority areas for us. So this slide kind of captures some of the highlights that research has kind of brought, that has been done nationally and locally. And basically what the research shows is that for more than a decade, advocates, researchers, and policymakers have been increasingly concerned about the behavioral health of Americans' children and the inadequacy of resources and systems to care for them. Even before COVID-19, behavioral health challenges were the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes of young people. And of course, COVID-19 just made a bad situation even worse. Massachusetts ranks higher than the national average for depression and anxiety in youth, recent data has shown. And studies conducted by the Children's Mental Health Campaign, which this slide actually has a link provided to it, so when we upload it, you'll be able to access it if you'd like more information. As well as the Massachusetts Association of Health Plans determined that in Massachusetts, 63.9% of children with severe depression do not receive any treatment or care. And I'm sure that if you know anybody or have had to try to get resources that have to do with mental health, you can sympathize how challenging that is nowadays. So pre-pandemic research studies indicate that approximately 1 in 5 children and adolescents experience a behavioral disorder each year. And half of adults who reported having behavioral or emotional challenges said that these problems began during their youth, which kind of indicates for us that the earlier we're able to address and support our children with these mental health issues that arise, the greater chance that they have an ability to be healthier adults and have success as they kind of also continue through their schooling. So this next slide kind of shows the raw statistical data, which there's a lot of different information that they provide, and it really, this is a research that has been done by the Metro West Regional Studies, and this is more of our local data too. And what this graphic shows is how local data that we have here really mirrors the national average. And the Metro West Adolescents Youth Mental Health Survey that King Philip Regional School District has recently conducted also saw very similar results. So in response to this growing need and the lack of access to mental health, resources and care for families and students, schools play a more significant role in supporting families and students with gaining access to mental health services and supports. And often schools are the only access that students have to train mental health professionals because school-based mental health is becoming a vital part of a student's support system. Our mental health staff in our district, which includes our adjustment counselors, our school psychologists, and our regional director of wellness, are really an invaluable and vital resource for our students and families. Excuse me. So one of the things I wanted to highlight that is part of our, Dr. Lardy mentioned earlier, and we're gonna speak a little bit more, is the benefit of having a regional director of wellness, whose position is partially funded by the behavioral health plan. And what it really allows is the schools to provide wraparound services for families and students. Ms. Thought Pearl, who is our regional director of wellness, also secures funding for all our 4 districts through competitive grant writing, and really supports our mental health staff on various levels. She provides resources like her having somebody who's able to really kind of support what is happening within each district and to really help us identify, like I said, those invaluable resources has been a really such an important source to have. So maintaining these supports, given the current state of what the statistics and our own experiences highlight, is a priority area for the district. So, and as you will see in our budget request as well. So the next part that I wanted to kind of speak to you about is our academic recovery, which is kind of something nice for us to share, and kind of our plan for another budgetary request, which is to maintain a math specialist position. So when children first returned to full in-person learning, district and state data indicated that students experienced gaps in learning in mathematics, particularly in the upper grades. So the district implemented a number of instructional strategies to support students in closing learning gaps, including adding an additional staffing to support mathematics instruction. We are pleased to report that recent testing indicated that the district and our students have made notable progress in strengthening their mathematical knowledge, which I think is due because of the support we received from the community and from our school committee and able to add the supports that we needed. So as a result, next year we will be reducing the .5 math paraprofessional we had added to support COVID recovery. This position was unfilled, so there won't be a cut in staffing. But as a district, we still have room to grow. As you can see that our current math data, although it's in an upswing, it's still not where it was pre-pandemic. So we really feel that retaining the additional .5 math teaching position that is currently in our budget is really important to ensure that the growth continues and we're able to see this progress continue to increase. I'll turn it back over. Dr. Lark.
So we typically share also with the public some per pupil spending comparisons. First, we'd like to show how Norfolk spending in education compares to the state. So if you look, again, over an 8-year period, you will see in the red line is the state average per pupil spending, and the blue line is Norfolk spending. So if you look back, you can see back in 2015, we were close to closing that spending gap. Norfolk was spending pretty much on average within $100 of what the state average was for per pupil costs. After 2015, you'll see that the budget increases in 2016, 17, and 18 did not keep up with enrollment growth. So even though the budget was increased, we had more students that we were serving, leading to a lower per pupil spending average. And that gap has continued to grow. It is the largest it has been. The last available end-of-year financial data that the state has out is 2021. And you can see we have over a $2,000 gap in the average per pupil spending. When you look at our per pupil expenditure comparisons to like districts, and again, these are districts that are identified by the Department of Education as comparison districts for Norfolk, mostly because they are K-6 or K-8 districts. And that said, they don't have some of the additional costs for education that a high school or middle school might have with athletic programs and other clubs and sports and band programs. So these are districts that are K-6 or K-8 systems, and you can see that of all of the comparison districts, Norfolk was at the bottom for average per pupil spending, with only Berkeley coming in lower than us. And again, if you look at, on average now, we're spending $2,150 less per pupil to educate students in Norfolk than the state average. If you multiply that by our current population of students, Norfolk's spending over $2 million less to educate our students than the average district in Massachusetts. Another thing that we like to highlight for the public is it's critically important that the town continue to invest educational dollars in maintaining high-quality learning programs, because first, we passionately believe that every child in Norfolk deserves the best possible education they can receive from the public schools. On top of that, there's a fiscal reason. We have 2 charter schools that are in our catchment area. We have the Foxborough Regional Charter School and the Benjamin Franklin Classical Charter School. Benjamin Franklin, in the last couple of years, has significantly expanded their seats, so the number of students that they can serve. It's gone from about 450 to 750 students, and it's a K-8 school. When students leave the district and go to a charter school, state aid follows the student. So the town is assessed a tuition bill for students that are attending the charter school. They receive some reimbursement from the state, but approximately $15,000 of educational dollars leaves Norfolk to follow students to a charter school. We used to have more students that were starting in charter schools when we didn't have a free universal full-day kindergarten program. Now that we have brought that in, we have a strong, outstanding kindergarten program. We have stopped that, and more students are coming to Norfolk. But the risk when students leave is they get comfortable in the school and they stay there for many years. So that $15,000 can be compounded over the life of the student's K-8 experience. So again, if we can't maintain class sizes and strong instructional programs that are competitive and compelling, that parents want their students to attend Norfolk, we risk losing significant educational funding to the local charter schools. All right, so we're going to walk through the 2024 budget request and budget drivers. Vicki's kind of talked about what some of our priorities were, and Barry's going to talk to you about what that looks like in dollars and cents.
Good evening. Our request this year is for a budget of $15,120,842. And that's a 4.7% increase over the current year, fiscal 23, or about $679,000. The school committee budget subcommittee has worked hard over the last several months to prepare a budget that's fiscally responsible and allows the district to continue to provide strong educational programs that meets the needs of our students. The 24 budget request will allow the district to maintain level services and meet contractual obligations for salary increases. In addition to the salary obligations and the level service funding, the budget allows us to increase our special education funding, not only in district for out-of-district students and the transportation associated with students. And that's increases associated with the existing population of students in the program. It also allows us, as Vicki mentioned, to maintain our portion of the regional wellness director position that's currently in a grant, and the grant will no longer be funded. It was a 4-year grant, and the grant isn't projected to be funded. So we want to pull that position into our operating budget. Vicki also mentioned the math specialist. That's a 1.0 FTE position. Half of it is currently in the operating budget, and half of it is in a COVID grant that ends at the end of 23. So we want to pull the second half into the operating budget so that we have a 1.0 position going forward. We also want to provide appropriate levels of staffing and the expenses associated with providing our mental health education. And we want to add a paraprofessional staff member to support the additional kindergarten classroom that's a result of the increased enrollment projected at the kindergarten level. So a little bit more detail on the budget. First, to kind of break down the largest component of the budget increase is $475,000 for contractual obligations, most of which is for our professional teaching staff to meet their COLA and their steps and lanes, and that's $408,000. There's $119,000 for all of the other staff's contractual obligations. And then we are projecting 2 teacher retirements, and savings from 2 teacher retirements is approximately, pardon me, $52,000. And all of that added together equals $475,000, by far the largest portion of the $678,000 increase that we're proposing. A little bit more detail on the staffing we're proposing, staffing changes that we're proposing. I mentioned the 1.0 FTE kindergarten paraprofessional that's for enrollment, and the kindergarten class that we're projecting today is 38 students more than the current kindergarten class. So that certainly speaks to another classroom or so. I mentioned the wellness director. Our portion of that position is $22,000. And again, we share that with Plainville, Rentham, and King Philip. So that's our portion. There are a couple of reductions a .5 math paraprofessional, and .3 instructional paraprofessionals, and then we're proposing transferring additional salary from the operating budget to the preschool revolving account, and that's based on the increases that we are projecting in the tuition as a result of increasing the rates that we approved at the committee a couple of meetings back. And then the last staffing change is the math specialist that we spoke about, and that's the half that isn't in the operating budget. And all of that for staffing increases equals about $72,000. In addition to staffing changes, there are changes in the non-staffing line items or the expense line items. And these are listed by school or department. For H. Holiday and for Freeman Kennedy, we're actually proposing reductions in their expense budgets, but really they aren't reductions. Their budgets are funded at level funding, and these are transferring from the school budgets over to technology, a few line items that really fit better in technology than the schools. So again, the day-to-day operating expenses of the schools stay the same. They'll still have the benefit of the technology, but it's really in the technology budget. There are three special ed line items that are increasing. Instructional services is really made up of evaluations and our summer programming. Tuitions are out-of-district tuitions for students that go to school outside of the district, and then the transportation associated with transporting all special education students, whether they're in district or out of district. And these are really projected based on the current students that have been identified for next year's programming. Our pupil transportation increase is contractual, so next year will be the third year of our 3-year contract. So we'll rebid it next year for the following year, but this is the contractual amount that's in the this is the budget amount that's in the contract. We're projecting a reduction for district offices, supplies and services. That's a reduction in legal fees, as well as transferring some expenses that are in their operating budget for lunch monitors over to the lunch revolving fund. The facilities maintenance increases are projected costs that are rising in items like supplies, services, trash, and utilities. And then lastly, the tech budget is increased as a result of the other two budgets that are decreasing at the school level. A couple other looks at the budget. The first is breaking the increase down into larger categories. The first being by far the largest of the 4.7% increase. 3.3% is contractual, most of which is salaries, and then there's the bus increase as well in there. The COVID recovery of 0.16% is moving the math specialists from the grant over to the operating budget. Special ed services are the transportation, tuition, and the other items I mentioned. Enrollment, again, that's the paraprofessional that we need to meet the increased enrollment at the kindergarten level. And then the others is made up of other small items, things like materials and supplies that I mentioned. And those are the larger components of those are the large categories of the 4.7% increase. I like to think of the overall budget in terms of sort of what's fixed and what's variable. And when I think about fixed costs in our budget, I think about 4 major categories: salary, transportation, tuition, and utilities. And that is about 95% of our budget. So about 5% of our budget, or $726,000, covers everything else. those, in that $726,000 are curriculum, textbooks, supplies, paper, all kinds of other miscellaneous expenses. So you really think about $726,000 as our variable cost where we can kind of control on a day-to-day basis how much of that we spend versus the much larger category where they're kind of fixed for the fiscal year. And then lastly, the overall budget breaks down into larger categories as well. The largest three slices by far are salary. Salaries of the professional staff is about 70%. The clerical staff is about 3.5%, and then all the other salaries equal about 15%. That's 88.9% of the overall budget is three salary items, which leaves you about 11% for everything else, and that's services, supplies, tuitions are in that number as well. So you can see that much of our costs are associated with paying our staff. I think that's my last slide. I'm going to send it right back to you.
Sorry.
I'll sit there.
All right, so we also like to share our projected enrollment and class size projections. Because we have varying fluctuations from year to year enrollment, we always look to the Norfolk Public Schools approved class size policy, and we often have to move teachers from one grade level to the next in order to balance class size numbers and ensure that we're meeting the appropriate staffing levels. Next year, as Barry mentioned, we are anticipating 164 students entering kindergarten. We have 154 currently enrolled. And typically between the close of kindergarten enrollment and the time we open in September, we have families move into the district and we have new students arrive. So we're projecting 164 students, which will require 8 sessions of kindergarten. This year we only have 7. So you'll see we're adding a session of kindergarten, and we anticipate a class size of 20 or 21. In first grade, we plan to have 7 sessions. That is what we have this year, so there'll be no changes at first grade. We have 128 kindergarten students that will be rolling up, and that will leave an average class size 18 and 19. In grade 2, we will be going down a session. We have anticipate 7 second grades next year. We have a current enrollment of first graders rolling up of 145, which leaves an average class size of 20 or class sizes of 20 and 21. Grade 3, we will be adding 1 teacher. We have 6 third grades this year. We will be going up to 7. We had hoped to have 8 third grades, but we aren't able to fund that at this time, so we have 7 projected. That'll be the highest class sizes in the district. We have 158 second grade students rolling up to third grade, and that will leave us with class sizes of 22 and 23 in the third grade. Fourth grade will be going down from 7 to 6 sessions. We have 126 third graders rolling up. That leaves us an average class size of 21. Fifth grade will be increasing, and so you can see when you look across, there's a lot of movement of teachers from grade level to grade level. We really do look at the student enrollment and what we need based on class size policy. But fifth grade will be going up. We have 136 students. There'll be 7 sessions with an average class size of 19.4. And sixth grade will be down a session next year. We have 128 fifth graders moving up to sixth grade currently, which leaves us with an average class size of 21.3. Overall, we will have no new additional classroom teachers in our FTE count next year, although there is significant movement within. Again, with the same like communities that we compare to for finance, for achievement data, and across the board, when we look at class size comparisons, Norfolk is on the higher end of our comparison communities. We are in the top, in the top 3 for class size. We have had an average class size between 1920, 2021, and 2022 of 20, 19, and 20. I anticipate that will be slightly up next year based on those third grade numbers, and we will remain at the upper end of the class size comparisons of our local communities. Again, we recognize and we always work hard to be respectful of the challenges and the fiscal constraints the town of Norfolk has, while advocating for appropriate funding to maintain strong programs within the district. So in our efforts to try to collaborate and work with our regional partners and with the town, every year we look for ways that we can reduce the financial ask through alternate means, whether it's grant writing or finding ways to share staff. And so in the upcoming fiscal 2024 budget, there's many areas that we have worked hard to find opportunities for savings. For a number of years now, we've shared our facility director and assistant facility director with the town. Going into fiscal 24, that will lead to a $20,000 savings for the schools to continue that shared arrangement. We also have a shared custodial staff position, and we've staggered the work hours so that position works on Saturday, which reduced our annual custodial overtime by about $5,000. 2 years ago, we regionalized our school lunch program, and we share a director and an assistant director with Norfolk and with Rentham and Plainville. That realizes about $15,000 in savings annually. We also cost share professional development, especially mandated professional development, with both Rentham, Norfolk, with Rentham, Plainville, and with King Philip. That leads to about $20,000 of savings annually. Special education tuitions. So we have worked probably over the last 5 years with both our partner elementary districts, Rentham and Plainville, on occasions where we have a student in Norfolk who has some unique learning needs that we are not able to meet within the district. We have tuitioned students into Rentham or Plainville if they have appropriate programs at a significantly lower reduced cost than what it would cost to place a child out in a collaborative program or in a private day program. There's also a benefit that all of our students feed the regional middle school. So while they may be in Rentham or Plainville, they get to know peers and make associations that will carry forward into the middle school. We also, in partnership, will often tuition students into Norfolk from Rentham or from Plainville if they have a child that doesn't have appropriate services within their homeschool district. Next year, through that partnership, we expect to see $43,000 in savings for special ed programming. Last year, we expanded our Global Developmental Delay program at the H. Olive Day. In doing that, it's allowed us to take many more students into the district. We were at capacity in our other program, but we can serve quite a few more kids, probably 6 to 7 more students, and as a result of that, we'll see $130,000 in savings next year. Competitive grant writing. As we talked about, our regional wellness director does a lot of grant writing for all 4 districts. We expect next year to have about $47,000 in grant funding for special programs and stipends and curriculum work that Dr. Pearl has brought in. We had a technology grant that was through NCL that realized $3,000 in savings. And we currently have a pending school safety and security grant that was jointly written by our facilities department and our technology department. That's for $100,000, $50,000 for each school for facilities upgrades to improve school safety and security. We're waiting to hear from that. But overall, with all of the different things that we have put into place, we're expecting close to $300,000 in savings from cost savings measures. Additionally, over the past couple of years, through community grant, we have been able to put in place many energy upgrades at the H. Olive Day School with lighting and other things. It's hard to calculate what the savings are because costs have gone up so much, but we've been able to absorb cost increases without going over budget as a result of those energy saving measures. Again, this is a conservative budget. This is not a budget that allows us to expand in the ways that we would like. There's many critical needs of the district that we cannot address with the available revenue. As I mentioned earlier, we really would like to see an additional classroom teacher at 3rd grade. That's about $68,000. If we were able to add that additional session, we would need to correspondingly increase art, music, and wellness in order to provide services and special subject construction to additional classrooms of teachers. Again, we mentioned our special education population is growing proportionate to our overall student body, and we have for a number of years needed to increase the team chair position to coordinate testing, initial eligibility meetings, progress meetings, and other special education functions. We reduced the secretary at the Freeman Kennedy by 0.2 a number of years ago. Again, we have a lot more students enrolled at this point and we'd like to see that position restored. We also at one time had a special education building substitute. We had to reallocate that position to meet current student needs. So that is a vacancy right now, and it is not funded in the budget. We would like to, again, with our growing enrollment, we would like to have an additional teacher to support evaluations for our students who have unique learning needs. We would also like to bring back that math paraprofessional. We had actually hoped to increase that this year, but we aren't able to support that funding. We have talked about having the library assistants at the HL Day be full-time. And again, these are just areas that we can't fund at this time. And we'd love to see our health education program brought back. But that's, again, another area that we are not able to address in the current budget. On the expense side, for a number of years, we've talked about the goal of eliminating band fees. We would love to see our band program free and available to all students. They already absorb a cost of renting instruments to participate in that program, and we would like them not to have to pay a fee to be able to participate, but we aren't able to bring that forward right now. We also reduced our curriculum adoption line 2 years ago by $40,000. We are in the middle of a 2-year English language arts curriculum review. We expect, based on that review, that we are going to need to upgrade some of our materials, literature that we're using to teach reading across the grades, and there's a significant cost to that. We're going to have to defer our purchase of new materials into the next fiscal year, but that's something that we're going to need to look at long-term, increasing that curriculum adoption line. All right, and I'll turn it over to Vicki to wrap up with the return on investment.
Thank you very much.
We're playing musical chairs here too, so. That's
So,
distracting.
so Norfolk is known for providing an excellent educational experience for all our students. We have many things that we're really proud of. Our students successfully transitioned into middle school because of the experiences that they receive at our schools. Some of the things that that our students benefit from is we're leaders in how we integrated technology into our classrooms. We are one of the select districts that have a makerspace and a really strong opportunities for students to develop those critical thinking skills, and we provide STEAM experiences: science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And those nowadays are vital skills for kids to be able to develop and grow, especially as they enter middle school and high school, and if they can, and beyond. Another thing that I think that we're really proud of is that we really do have an exemplary music and arts program. Again, we're one of the select districts that at an elementary level we are able to provide those vital musical experiences such as chorus and band, which we all know is vital for the development of our children's brains, so, and really helps them with academics and allows them to develop their self and expression. And so I think it's something that we can really be proud of. We also have, our teacher retention rate is really low, especially during the recent climate where a lot of districts really struggle with retaining and hiring teachers. And that's something that I think, because of the environment and the support that we have from the community and our families, we really are very lucky that we have some really strong educators that have been with us for a long time, and we're also able to recruit new talent as well to the district. And I think that academically, I just want to switch to the next couple of slides. We continue to outperform the state in our MCAS scores, and even though we've seen a slight decline because of the pandemic, we're still performing better than the average district in Massachusetts. And that is really quite the feat, given the challenges that we all faced during the last couple of years. So as you can see, this is our trends for the last 5 years. And in blue is Norfolk, so this is our English language arts MCAS scores versus the red in the state. And we're more than 10%, our students on average score 10% higher than the state. And if you look for our mathematics scores, we saw even a more dramatic increase, which we spoke a little bit earlier to, it really is due to the supports that we're able to put in place to be able to kind of meet the challenges that the pandemic brought in this area. So as you can see, we've had almost more than a 20% increase in how our students performed over the state. So I guess at the end, we just want to thank you for your time, for letting us present your budget, and again, thank you for your support, especially to our school committee and anybody who's watching out at home and our family and community. Like, this really is a team effort, and I think that we wouldn't be able to do what we are able to do without everybody kind of working together. So I'll turn it back over for questions.
Yep, and I think we'll come back to the seats because most of the questions will be from the committee and audience, so.
Okay. Should we take anybody on the committee have questions or comments before we open it up to the public?
One quick
I do. I just like to wait.
I have one just about early on. You talked about the Title I and Title IIA.
Yep.
What was the reasoning from switching from federal census data to, or I'm sorry, the other way around, from local to federal?
Well, one was because districts weren't consistently gathering that when meals went to being universally free, and there was federal funding for that. So that was one of the main drivers. But we didn't have really a say in that. That was the federal government voted to make that transition. But it was partially because the data wasn't universally available across the country when meals went to be free.
Okay, but the census data was, okay.
Yep. Other questions?
You know me.
Yes,
So,
Betty?
I mean, I will say that it is very impressive as a district to retain pretty much the same teachers year after year after year,
Yep.
and principal. It's really impressive. So thank you for that, and our children certainly benefit from that as well. I know, Ingrid, that you mentioned something about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, but I didn't see anything specific in the line items. Could you talk a little bit more about how
Sure.
you see that being used to increase?
Yeah, so over the last 2 years, when we presented our budget, we have added mental health staffing. We added a full-time school psychologist, and we added a part-time social worker.
At both schools or here?
Their district, the school psychologist position is primarily at Freeman Kennedy.
Okay.
And does help out with testing when needed, and the .5 social worker is district-wide. So we added those positions as we were preparing to welcome students back after the pandemic, recognizing, again, as Vicki said, that the mental health trends and the behavioral health needs of students have been increasing since 2008. This far preceded the pandemic, but the disruption in schooling made things worse. So we added those positions. I know that there is some questions among the public and the town of, if we're adding things for recovery, when do they get pulled back out of the budget? And what we wanted to really emphasize tonight was, again, this mental health need is significant. We are seeing higher rates in Massachusetts than across the country with anxiety and depression. This has long preceded the pandemic. There's a critical shortage of services, and I think Vicki talked about 22% of students that have behavioral health needs only access services through the school. And a child's ability to have all of their needs met is critical to their ability to participate in learning in the classroom. So while you don't see any new ads for mental health staff, we need to continue those positions. We can't take them out of the budget because there's still a critical need. So we are maintaining the additional positions we added to support student mental health over the last 2 years. And I see that need continuing into the immediate future, again, as these needs continue to grow.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Any revenue from this? Are we renting spaces, or are we doing?
We are.
I know it's probably minimal, but
It's very minimal. We have a facilities revolving account. Barry could report out at the next meeting what is in that account. It's minimal, and we generally use that for unforeseen costs.
Yeah.
We have, a lock repair that we need to do. We have a door that breaks. So that revolving account offsets some of those critical needs that we have that are unbudgeted.
I would just be curious, Barry, like I know we're not getting a ton, but I'm just curious. Next time.
When I do my quarterly report,
Yep.
after the end of March,
Okay.
I'll have a section in the report on it.
Yeah. Great. And then without the increase in the specialists here, well, actually both schools, will there be enough time to meet all the specials?
We do, because we're not
Classes?
adding a classroom. So we are continuing with the same total number of classrooms next year that we have this year, and we have a sufficient time in our specialist schedules. So, but if we were to add a classroom, which we really should be doing because of growth in enrollment, if we had the appropriate revenue to do that, then we would need to correspondingly increase specialists to meet that need.
Which leads me to my last question. What if, and this is a what if, what happens if in kindergarten right now, I'm assuming the 38 extra kids you said?
Right.
Yeah,
are in
154.
there. So
Yep.
that was in the total 154, but it
Yep.
is March.
And
we
we-
have until August 31st,
Yep.
right?
29th.
Or September, whatever, you know, the 29th. What happens if between March and August, we get an influx? Do
So it's a really good
kindergarten,
question.
third grade? I mean, third
Yep.
grade looks kind of
Yeah, what if
nasty
it's third
too.
grade?
Yep.
That's a critical year.
I'm sure
Both
they're
of them
lovely,
are,
just the
all of them
size
are
looks
bad.
nasty.
Yeah, all of them are critical years, but third grade, writing and,
Yep. So for, as far as kindergarten, we have 154 enrolled, and we looked at past trend data, and we've planned on 164 based
Okay.
on what we've seen
Okay.
in the past,
Okay.
because we know we will get additional enrollment. So should enrollment mirror the past trends, then we
Okay.
will be
Then
okay in
I-
kindergarten.
yeah.
If we have an unforeseen circumstance and significant enrollment, there was a year that we had to go back to the town at a fall town meeting and ask for additional funding to add a classroom teacher.
Okay.
We did that through the budget. We had to freeze some other accounts until we knew that appropriation came through. But if that circumstance arose, we would have to reconsider. We budget for what we currently have, and we look at past trends. We don't typically get as many new students enrolling in the upper grades
Right.
as we do in the younger.
Yep.
And we do have some students that leave the district in the upper grades. So that has, you know, we budget based on past trends and what we anticipate, but if unforeseen circumstances come up, we may have to go back to the town.
and one more question. Rentham and Plainville, do you know if they offer health classes in their budget?
Plainville does not. Rentham, I believe that has been cut, but I would have to confirm that with Rentham.
I mean, I know, I say this year after year when we do budget, I'm always, and this is no reflection on you or school committee, but I know we have to work with the town budget and we have to work with all the other departments in town, and we, you know, I understand that, and we, so I can appreciate this, but I'm always disappointed when I see us at the bottom, and I'm like,
fully
oh
agree.
my goodness, and you know, 5 miles down the road and they're a couple ahead of us, you know, and the thing. So that's my.
It is a critical issue, and I would say the town is now engaged a company to help develop a master plan. The true issue in Norfolk is a revenue problem.
Yeah.
It's primarily based on tax base, and that needs to change, especially as we continue to grow. And with all this development, there has to be some different plans for increasing revenue to offset those costs and absorb those costs.
That's
So
true.
I know the town is looking at that and certainly agree. And I think when Vicki was talking about return on investment, Norfolk is spending less per pupil and getting a higher return. And that is a tribute strictly to all of the educators that work for us, that go above and beyond every day, to our principals, to our administrators who are here at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, putting everything they can to provide the best educational experience. And when Vicki talked about retention, we have a low turnover. We have a high retention, almost 98%. So it's really a tribute to the people that are working every day. And they need the appropriate tools and resources in order to continue to do the job that they do.
Agreed. Thank you.
Ingrid,
You wanna
what
open
is the, I know it's a school committee policy, so I should know it off the top of my head, but it's different for kindergarten. What is the class size upper limit for kindergarten?
21.
20, and we're at 20.5 on average.
Yep.
Going
And
into
up
next
at the
year.
upper grades, it's 25, but we have never gone to class size. We've had 24 before, but that's really actually something I'd suggest the committee revisit. Because 25 in today's current climate, with the level of rigor of our curriculum and instruction and the needs of our students, is a really high number.
Okay. So, I mean, we're basically right there at
Yep.
kindergarten. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any questions or comment, anyone else on the committee? I know Lisa and I are well-versed in this.
We've
Many a
been
meeting.
deep in it for a while.
Digging into it. Anyone from our droves of people from the public here have any comments? Okay.
I actually do have one more. It could be pretty minor, but I'm always curious about the charter schools and how, I know you talked about the numbers. Do we have any numbers about how much we have lost over the years for kids that go?
Total revenue, I don't have at my fingertips. I can tell you the assessment that the town has for charter schools for next year is up slightly. It's $313,000 in charter schools, and they get a reimbursement of about $90,000 of that. So it's about $15,000 per child, and we have fewer kids that leave the district at the lower grade levels.
Okay, then the higher grades.
Yeah, but I'm happy to bring you a report that kind of shows how many kids are enrolled at the charter at each grade level, if the committee's interested.
It'd just be interesting.
Yeah,
to
happy
see.
to do
Thank
it.
you.
It's gone down since we've went with
Right,
universal
you said that.
full-day kindergarten.
Thank you.
Sure.
And now that's a thread that I have to pull. The like communities that we have here, I know it was a big deal when we adopted universal full-day kindergarten.
Yep.
It was not that long ago, because I know I
Yep.
paid for one child to go.
Yes.
The other one got to squeak through. But so for example, Plainville and Rentham is going to be offering that next year. Is
Yes,
that correct?
and Plainville has
And Plainville
for a
has
long
some
time.
So when we're looking at
No.
educational dollars, I mean, Rentham will be outspending us by even more next year, in theory, yes? Yeah, and they're already
Probably.
outspending us by,
Well, they
$3,000
won't
to
be, they won't be
$4,000
collecting,
right,
revenue.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
And at this point, when we transitioned to free full-day kindergarten, 85% of districts in the Commonwealth had free kindergarten. And that was, Linda would know better than I, 5 or 6 years ago. So I would say at this time, there's very few districts that still charge.
No,
for
I
Yeah.
agree with you completely, and I know just during remote learning, when we had to go back to half days, it had only been a few years at that point, and
Yes.
it was
And it was hard.
extremely disruptive to the
Yep.
school community, so, I'm wholeheartedly supported. I just wanted to make sure, when we're looking at the like communities, we're kind of wrapping everything in that everyone's spending on as well. And the per pupil spending includes grants, major grants that we write for, is that correct?
Yes, and anything that the town contributes. So while we have some shared service, we have to account for that in our end-of-year report.
Okay.
So it's all in, and that's why it's probably the best comparison financially across the state, because it's based on district's end-of-year financial audit and accounting.
Okay.
So it's the total amount spent divided by the number of students you have. And again, that's where, even though the budget went up in 17 and 18, because we had more students, that gap didn't close for the state. All right.
Okay. Absent public comment, second shot, anyone? Okay. It appears we will, this will be a vote. We will need a motion to adjourn the meeting and commence our regularly scheduled school committee meeting immediately thereafter, so.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. It is past the 7:45 start time we suggested, so we can roll right into school committee, right?
Yep.
Okay. We'll,
I don't know if you want to read the
Feels-
mission again, or we're going to let that carry over. Since we read it twice tonight.
I will call to order the school committee meeting of Wednesday, March 15th. Scheduled to start at 7:45, now starting at 8:02, not bad. Thank you for coming, Linda. I'm going to assume that, I will read the mission statement for our adoring fans out in the world. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Once again, may I have a roll call?
Jennifer Nguyen?
Shannon Manassas. Lisa Sheldon.
Victoria Soldan.
Barry Neptel.
Ingrid Alarney,
And Medora Champagne. So we...
public comment again.
We have another public comment period. I don't think anyone is chomping at the bit, so we will move on to correspondence, of which I believe there is none.
No.
So we are flying through our agenda,
Wow, look at us.
moving straight back to Ingrid for the superintendent's report.
All right. And we have a limited number of items today because we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago. So the first thing is, again, we had presented the budget request for the 2024 fiscal budget. We had no public comment today or public feedback. So that said, I would request that the school committee vote to approve the 2024 proposed budget.
So we would be looking for a motion to approve the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget that we just had a very informative public hearing about. We can get a motion, we can have any additional discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, this was a hard budget, and
It was
the items we had to cut, you know, they don't sit well, but I know they were necessary. The fact that we're not adding a teacher for third grade, we can't support that right now, but we also have to remember this class has not finished a normal year of school yet. So we have sat as a budget subcommittee and really gone through this line by line. And I asked Barry, can you email every single line item in this budget? And he did, and I walked through every single line. I appreciate that. And really, there's nothing else. Like, we've really gone through and done the comprehensive work. And so there's no fluff in here. I've looked, and there's just none.
Yeah.
And I think the choices we made, while very difficult, are the best ones, like Ingrid said, with the least impact, but still they're critical needs that we had to cut to work with the town. And I understand we have to do this, but really want to emphasize that we're not cutting things we like, kind of cutting things we need at this point.
Further to Lisa's point, I mean, I think that it is, no one is putting this budget forward saying this is the best case budget scenario that the school, like, this is great, you know, like, let's all put a stamp on it and go home and sleep well tonight. I think that it is the most challenging budget experience that
Absolutely.
I've had since I've been on this committee. I'm in my second term, and I've had the dubious honor of being involved with budget from the get-go, and I found this one more challenging than the COVID year. I found it, you know,
Absolutely.
we've had to bridge shortfalls before, but never to the extent that we've had to deal with this year. So it is extremely challenging, and my long-term concern is just that the enrollment is not going down, and so this is going to continue to be an issue unless there's some way to address the kind of continued revenue shortfall that we seem to keep running into at the town level. So completely agree with Lisa's assessment.
And I would support that. I've been here 11 years. This is the most difficult budget we've ever worked through. And it's sort of the culmination of a perfect storm that we have loss of federal grants that we've relied on for a number of years, in addition to the increasing enrollment, some increasing special education costs, and increasing student need. And I don't think in the 11 years I've been here, we've had a budget that has been a wish list item budget. They've been tight annually, and you can see that when you look at state comparisons. We stretch the dollar the best that we can, and when you go through the budget, as Lisa said, line by line, we have every year made cuts to the expenses, to curriculum adoption, to all of the budget lines to try to preserve teachers, because we are absorbing the cost of enrollment. So when you're looking at a 4%, again, a teacher, 1% of our budget's about $91,000. An average teacher salary is $68,000. So if we add one teacher, that's almost 1%. So when you're looking at growth, it is kind of overshadowing the fact that when we're asking for 4.25% and people think that's high, it's 3% level of service plus the enrollment needs. So we're not growing, we're not adding, we are providing the best that we can, high quality services with low educational funding. So I do think it's a critical need. I think it's something we've talked about for a number of years at advisory board and at town meeting. We always show what the unfunded needs of the district are. We always show those comparisons, and the revenue shortfall will continue to grow as all these developments come online and new houses are on the market and new students are moving into the district. So while we're looking at the space needs and the potential of an expansion project, that houses students, that doesn't educate students. So I do think it's critical that the town is looking at, and I know they are with diligence, how to address this revenue shortfall, because it impacts all departments. When you have growing population, it impacts services from police, it impacts fire, it impacts the library. So it's sort of an across-the-board plan. I think what the budget subcommittee prepared for the budget request is fiscally conservative. I think it's reasonable. It allows us to provide appropriate educational services, but as both Lisa and Medora have said, there are critical needs that we can't fund in this budget. So we did the best we could to balance the budget to provide an appropriate request that the town hopefully will be able to fund, but there's nowhere else to go from there. So.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Todd, because I can't, it does seem like it's difficult. Like Jen said, I don't like seeing us at the bottom. And I have a son who's going to be in 3rd grade, and, you know, I don't love the idea of his classroom being that size, but I completely appreciate and recognize that you've probably looked at this, you know, upside down and turned it inside out, and appreciate that time.
So we just need a vote.
Yeah, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes.
All right, next on the list, annually I make a recommendation to the school committee around school choice. So by law, all districts have to have a policy to admit non-resident students under the terms and conditions of the interdistrict school choice law. Districts have the right to opt out of participating in it. So annually, you have to make a decision as to whether or not you want to participate in school choice by June 1st. If we open seats to school choice, we do get tuition from students that are coming into the district, but it doesn't always offset the cost of educating students that come into the district. If you accept students through school choice, they have the right to complete their education within the Norfolk schools. So if you accept students in kindergarten, they have the right to complete through 6th grade. I would recommend at this time, based on our growing class sizes, our limited budget, that the district opt out of school choice, because I think also with all of the growing enrollment and the potential at some of our classes where we have high class sizes, if we have an enrollment growth, I think it's risky for the committee to accept students that you would have to carry through 6th grade, not knowing what the new growth in enrollment is going to look like. So it's my recommendation that the school committee vote to opt out of participating in school choice. There's more information in the memo for you about costs and reimbursement for that.
And we have historically been opting out.
We have historically opted out. Vicki, do you mind shutting my computer?
Oh, sure.
So we are looking for a motion to opt out of school choice.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? I chime in and say that I agree that it does not seem timely to open enrollment up to out-of-district students when we are having a hard time
Maintaining class sizes.
funding education for the students that we have in the district. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the motion to opt out passes.
Right. And then the last thing I have tonight is, because we are part of the Bi-County Collaborative, which again is the collaborative that we access when we have students who have unique needs that we aren't able to serve within the district. All member districts have to receive a certified copy of the BICO budget. They approved the budget, and the board of directors approved the budget at our last meeting. It is a balanced budget. BICO brings in revenue through tuitions for all of its programs. So you can see for fiscal 2024, the revenue projection is $15,661,327, and the expense projections are $15,660,665, resulting in a surplus of $662. So that's a better projection in particularly during the COVID years. The revenue picture wasn't great for BICO, and we were using surplus revenue in order to balance the budget. We have quite a few new students. The enrollment has gone up, and as a result, we are projecting a balanced budget for next year. So that's just informational, no required votes, but happy to take any questions about the BICO overall budget.
Seems fine to me.
Okay, then we're on to committee reports.
King Philip?
King
You've
Philip.
been busy.
Yes. Hours. No, but I'm very pleased to announce that King Philip has made a choice for a new superintendent, and he is accepted, and the contract is signed. So it is official. We are welcoming Dr. Richard Drolet from the Seekonk Public Schools, starting in August to replace Paul Zinni, who will be dearly, dearly, dearly missed. It was a very difficult choice. We had Dr. Morano and Dr. Drolet as finalists, and they were both, they just were super strong, strong superintendents in their own right in their district, great at budgets, great at, we got to go visit their schools, and they had great site visits, great reviews from the people who got to go visit. And then they got a chance to come visit King Philip, and then they were also, there were so many stakeholders involved that were able to make the input from teachers to the students to community members, parents, school committee members. And, you know, really we deliberated for quite some time, but ultimately Dr. Drolet we thought would be the best fit to carry forth the vision of King Philip for the next foreseeable future. So that's what's been going on, hours and hours of interviews.
But it's
and
great, you had a
deliberations.
really good candidate pool. I
We
know
did.
personally, I've worked with both Peter Morano and Rich, and both excellent candidates. I think he'll
It was
do a
really
fantastic
a
job
hard-
leading the district forward.
Really a tough decision, really was. But I'm very happy.
Policy?
Policy. We have a few things tonight. We were going to do them at our last meeting. Three we need to vote on. We are, as I mentioned in our last meeting, we're on an audit of the civil rights policy, so trying to get these through rather quickly. Three of them had incidental changes in just updating some language around the protected classes. Those are the top three that you see on the list. And then, of course, the entrance age, which we had a first reading of a few months ago now. And the question was raised about private schools. That will not be included in this, so this will be the second reading. But the other three we do need to vote on.
And there were no changes to the other three policies in any of the three readings. We just hadn't listed them as a vote, as Shannon
Yes.
said, so.
Can we make one motion to approve all three, or do we need a separate motion for each one?
I would say you probably can do one motion for all three because they're all the same incidental changes.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So we would be looking for a motion to approve JICK, harassment of students, AC, non-discrimination, and ACR, non-discrimination, including harassment and retaliation, all of which are at a third reading, three reading. That doesn't make any sense. Could I get a motion to approve the policies as stated?
I'll make a motion to approve the policies as stated.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Efficiently.
Entrance age is just a second reading, so if there are any further questions or feedback from the committee on that one, we can consider them.
No, I appreciate everyone doing their due diligence and getting all of the explicit information for those parents of children who fall on the bubble of eligibility.
And we didn't have a policy meeting tonight, so we'll have one in April.
Okay, so that moves us on to new items, of which there are very few. We need to approve the school committee meeting minutes from our March 1st, 2023 meeting.
I will be abstaining. I was not here. Right? I was not here. I was not. I don't think so.
So
No,
actually.
I was not.
Shannon, were you here on March 1st?
Yes,
Okay.
so
Okay, so the
It was
three of
just
us are,
Jen.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It was a
just
small
Jen.
group,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so having perused the minutes myself, I will give you guys a moment and then ask for a motion. So moved. Okay, can I get a second from the end of the table there? Okay, wonderful. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next regularly scheduled event is Tuesday, April 11th, which is the Tuesday prior to April vacation. Is that right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, I'm around. Is everybody else available for
I'm
that?
looking, yeah.
I already have it on.
7 p.m.
That should be a non-budget night, correct? I think we tried to put all the budget meetings on Wednesday, so I don't
Yeah.
think there's any budget items on that night if you can't make that night.
I can make it.
Oh, you can? Okay, great.
But we will do policy before.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm in. You good, Jen?
I'm good.
Everybody's happy? All right. So we will keep that date, and then we just need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, me as well. Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
That'd be efficient.
I know, right?